Hey, it's your buddy Peace and Harmony with you here today. I want to look at some of the red flags of a borderline personality sort of individual. Borderline personality. This is somebody who, now on the DSM-4R, the classification system utilized by mental health professionals, they're basically in the same subset as what they call personality disorders. People who are experiencing extreme discomfort of certain problems and issues with their feelings internally. They're experiencing a lot of relationship issues. Perhaps the symptoms manifest as financial issues, financial binge spending, different issues with regards to relationships, food disorders, eating disorders. And sometimes the root of a lot of these can be related to personality disorder or the way someone is actually processing this in their mind. And what I want to bring to attention for you today is that experience in what they call the borderline personality disorder, and how to identify some red flags if you're kind of maybe perhaps dealing with someone like this. You've got someone like this perhaps in your family, perhaps a love interest of yours, and you're wondering, well, how come I couldn't have seen this coming, or what are some things I should look for, Peace and Harmony, so that I can better... Oh my gosh, a green ladybug. That is so cool. Wait, do you see that? Usually these things are red. Maybe it's just a baby. You see that? Wonders of nature. Well, much like these people are wonders of nature. Now, the borderline person, they're going to, I would say one of their flagship personality qualities is their inability to control anger. So they are really going to have quite a bit of extreme emotional swings, emotional sort of ups and downs, emotional explosiveness, if you will. A lot of people, will perceive this as positive. For example, this person might be highly opinionated or highly, erratic behavior, which can be exciting for some people. Maybe they're very laid back, professional, and then this person provides kind of an outlet or, sort of a diversion for them, if you will, and adds a little spice into their life, excitement, joy. And, that might be the first attractive quality. However, the issue with these people, as they can tend to, hence their name borderline, their episodes converge on basically out of touch with reality, meaning psychotic, meaning they will, in a moment's notice or without a moment's notice, they will just really erupt into an anger explosion, which then can erupt into kind of an exploitation of you, the very person that they love. The borderline person really has an issue with, I would say, pushing away and alienating and isolating the people who they really love and are closest to in their life. So these people are really going to receive a lot of that sort of explosive, anger, hostility sort of treatment from them, and so they're very difficult to have a reciprocal relationship with. They're very difficult to get to know in this respect, and they're very difficult to exchange love, if you will. Have an open channel of love, going back and forth between the two of you, because they tend to vacillate. They tend to swing and be very unstable between, feelings of love for something and then feeling of hatred for something. They do see things in very black and white issues and have a very unique ability to vacillate. Vacillate meaning kind of go back and forth. Vacillate between this feeling of love, intense love, joy, extreme happiness, and then all of a sudden, boom, you are pushed against the wall. You are, treated in a very hostile manner. A lot of this can be verbally explosive, verbally condescending, verbally critical, physical explosion as well. They kind of, flip the switch, they flip the lever, and they are, now in their black zone, and they can go back and forth between these two, and they do realize that this is ongoing, but it's very resistant to change, which is different from the narcissist, because a narcissist, they might have narcissistic rage, but they really do not have, the narcissist does not really have empathy or sort of like that understanding of kind of what people are going through, where I think the borderline is a little bit more cognizant and aware of this situation. So they are more apt to, realize that they're hurting people and, have kind of a self-hatred issue going on more so than a narcissist, where they really will have a lot of self-hatred, a lot of self-loathing, really deep down inside, even despite, their accomplishments or things that they have in their life, they really feel quite empty and really quite devoid of a lot of long-standing joy, a lot of long-standing happiness, a lot of long-standing love, because it's like a seesaw. It can be up and then down one moment. Different from a bipolar, but definitely, they can definitely kind of throw off people who are in their, close circle, because they will, without a moment's notice, just kind of erupt, and, it can really sever a relationship, when you're going through this, because these people literally will not allow you to be in a relationship with them. They won't permit it. Their outbursts will push you away. It'll become so hostile, it'll be so conflict laden that you literally, have to leave the relationship. I mean, they will not permit it to continue. A lot of these people can be very self-negating, self-injurious, have suicidal thoughts. It can be quite severe in a lot of these cases. They do need medical attention oftentimes for this sort of, personality disorder and conflict that tends to be an issue for them in their life and then in their relationships. And, to see this coming, if you see someone who has a lot of, anger outbursts and, kind of swings back and forth, and this is kind of a pervasive thing, this is a really kind of good red flag of the issue. Also, if, you see that they have a lot of emotional instability, or they get bored very easily, they're not easily laid back, they're not very comfortable in their own skin, they don't want to just rent a movie at home or watch Netflix or something. They are more apt to constantly be pushing to an extreme where it seems unreasonable. I mean, these are some definite red flags of a borderline. Someone who wants to get up way too early, stay up way too late. They have a lot of kind of superficial relationships, and they kind of have a fear, really, that they will not be able to, maintain these relationships because of their mood instability. They tend to alienate people. Alienate means, push them away and cause them to really suffer and feel isolated or not welcome. And even though the borderline might internally feel like, well, it would be nice if I could have this relationship ongoing, they have an emotional processing physiological that causes these outbursts and causes them to actively push away people. And, I think these people do suffer quite a bit and wish that they were different, if you do come into contact with these types of people, and you desire to maintain with them, I mean, it's very difficult, because they continually are going to go through that cycle, and they're continually going to be, in that push and pull syndrome. And some people, I think, with a milder borderline case, these people have a high degree of tolerance and maybe not a great degree of need in a relationship, where they don't mind being mistreated, they don't mind being, emotionally exploited, they don't mind the hostile outbreaks. Maybe they have just this huge heart for this person, and so they're able to stay involved. But it can be very dramatic and very hurtful to people in their life, and especially borderlines and their kids tend to have a very, very foreign parenting style. Very authoritarian, very controlling, but very, very distant, very emotionally cold, not supportive, nurturing, guiding, those sort of things that are really required for healthy and normal child development. So, you know, a lot of this, you know, you really need to look for in people, and just be cautious, because, you know, if you find someone has a lot of these kind of extreme emotional tendencies, and aren't channeling it accurately or effectively, aren't able to utilize having a, you know, an outlet for this, then, you know, you might want to be cautious of that, so you don't get, you know, thrown on the thrown on the pavement, so to speak, by a borderline. Peace and harmony with you here today. We're going to be exploring these types of dealings in more future videos. Please share, please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussions, and support.